Something happened inside that hospital room today that no one around your soulmate was prepared for. A decision was made, a message was written, and before anyone could stop it, your name became the most important name in the entire room. Your soulmate had been holding something inside for far too long, but today the fear of losing more time became stronger than the fear of finally telling you the truth. And the message that left that room was not meant for their family, their friends, or anyone standing beside them. It was meant for you. Listen carefully. Because what happened today was not a casual moment of emotion. Your soulmate had been quiet for hours, staring toward the window while people around them kept asking if there was anything they needed. Nurses came and went. Family members tried to change the subject. Someone even told them to rest and stop thinking about everything that had happened in the past. But your soulmate could not rest, because one thought kept returning again and again, you. At first, they refused to explain why they were suddenly emotional. They simply asked for something to write on. A person standing nearby thought they wanted to make a list of things they needed from home. But when the paper was placed in their hands, your soulmate did not write about clothes, medicine, money, or anything connected to the hospital. The first thing they wrote was your name. That alone changed the atmosphere in the room. Someone immediately asked, "Why are you writing that name now?" Your soulmate looked up, and for several seconds they said absolutely nothing. Their eyes were filled with the kind of emotion that appears when someone has spent too long pretending they have moved on. Then they finally admitted something that shocked everyone listening. They said they were tired of allowing other people to decide how their story with you should end. That sentence created silence. Because some of the people in that room knew exactly what your soulmate meant. There had been conversations you never heard. Decisions made without you. Advice given behind closed doors. Moments when your soulmate was told that contacting you would only create more problems. And for a long time, your soulmate allowed those voices to influence what happened next. But lying in that hospital room changed something. Suddenly all the arguments, pride, misunderstandings, and opinions of other people seemed small compared with one terrifying possibility, that life could continue moving forward and your soulmate might never get the chance to tell you what was really inside their heart. So they began writing. They wrote about regret. They wrote about the nights they almost contacted you but stopped themselves. They wrote about memories they still carry, even though they pretended those memories no longer mattered. And then they wrote something that caused one person in the room to turn away because they could no longer hide their reaction. Your soulmate admitted that losing you never felt like a normal ending. It felt unfinished. They confessed that even when they tried to imagine another future, there was always a missing piece. They could smile around others. They could continue with responsibilities. They could even convince people that everything was fine. But privately, something remained unresolved. And today they finally gave that feeling a name. They called it regret. Not regret because they loved you. Regret because they allowed fear, pressure, distance, and other people's opinions to become louder than what they truly felt. But the most emotional part of the message came next. Your soulmate wrote that they are not asking you to forget everything that happened. They are not asking you to pretend you were never hurt. And they are not expecting one message to repair years of silence, confusion, or separation. They simply want you to know the truth before another day passes. You mattered. You still matter. And despite everything that happened, your place in their heart was never completely replaced. When they finished writing, someone close to them reached for the message and quietly asked, "Are you absolutely sure you want this sent?" Your soulmate answered immediately. Yes. No hesitation. No second thought. Then came the question that exposed just how serious this moment had become. What if they don't answer? Your soulmate looked down for a moment. And what they said next stunned everyone. They said, "Then at least they will finally know I never wanted our story to end the way it did." But that was not the entire message. Because before the paper left the hospital room, your soulmate added one final paragraph at the bottom. A paragraph nobody expected. A paragraph connected to a promise that was made long before the separation. And when one family member read those final words, they immediately asked your soulmate to remove them. Your soulmate refused. They folded the message. They handed it to someone they trusted. And they gave one clear instruction. Make sure this reaches them exactly as I wrote it. But what was written in that final paragraph is the part that could completely change what you believed about the ending of this love story. Because your soulmate did not only confess what they still feel for you. They revealed who convinced them to stay away from you, and why that person is suddenly terrified that this message is finally on its way to you. The moment that final paragraph was read aloud, the atmosphere inside the hospital room changed completely. Until then, everyone had believed your soulmate was simply emotional because of everything they had been through. But now it became clear that this message was carrying something much heavier than regret. It was carrying a truth that someone had worked very hard to keep buried. Your soulmate had finally written the name of the person who interfered between the two of you. And that person was much closer to the situation than you were ever allowed to realize. For a long time, your soulmate believed certain decisions had been made for their own good. They were told that you had changed. They were told you no longer wanted the same future. They were made to believe that contacting you again would only reopen wounds that could never be repaired. But today, lying in that hospital bed with nowhere left to hide from their own memories, your soulmate began connecting pieces that had never made sense before. There were messages they supposedly sent that you never received. There were things you supposedly said that your soulmate now realizes may never have come from you at all. There were private conversations where your words were repeated differently, twisted just enough to create doubt. And slowly, painfully, your soulmate began understanding that the separation may not have happened naturally. Someone had been feeding both sides a different version of the story. That realization broke something inside them. Your soulmate looked toward the person standing beside the bed and asked a question that had probably been waiting years to be spoken. Why did nobody tell me the truth? No one answered immediately. That silence was enough. Your soulmate already knew. They remembered one particular day from the past when they had been preparing to reach out to you. They had your contact open. They had even written the beginning of a message. But before they could send it, someone stepped in and told them something devastating. They were told that you had already chosen another path. That you wanted nothing more to do with them. That reaching out would only embarrass them. Your soulmate believed it. And that single conversation changed everything. But today they discovered something that made their hands shake. The person who gave them that information never actually heard it from you. They had simply decided what your soulmate needed to believe. And when your soulmate confronted them about it inside that hospital room, the excuses began immediately. I was trying to protect you. You were already hurting. I thought you needed to move on. I didn't know things would go this far. But your soulmate was no longer accepting excuses. Because years had passed. Years of silence. Years of unanswered questions. Years where both of you may have believed the other person willingly walked away. Your soulmate became emotional and said, "You didn't protect me. You took away my chance to hear the truth directly from them." That sentence left the room completely silent. Then your soulmate asked something even more painful. What else did you hide? Nobody was prepared for the answer. Because another person in the room suddenly admitted that there had been more than one attempt from your side to reconnect. A message had arrived. Then another. And at least one of them had never been shown to your soulmate. When your soulmate heard this, they stopped speaking. For several seconds, they simply stared ahead as though years of their life were being rewritten in front of them. Then the tears came. Not loud tears. Not dramatic tears. The quiet kind. The kind that appear when someone realizes they may have spent years grieving an ending that never had to happen. Your soulmate asked where those messages were now. Someone said they did not know. But another family member suddenly looked uncomfortable. Your soulmate noticed immediately. Do you know something? The person tried to avoid the question. Your soulmate asked again. And finally, the truth came out. One of your old messages had been kept. It had never been destroyed. Someone had saved it because deep down they knew what had been done was wrong. Your soulmate demanded to see it. At first, the person refused. They said this was not the right time. They said your soulmate needed rest. They said opening the past inside a hospital room would only make things worse. But your soulmate looked directly at them and said, "The past is already here." Nobody argued after that. The old message was finally brought out. And when your soulmate began reading your words, their entire expression changed. Because your message did not sound like someone who had moved on. It did not sound cold. It did not sound angry. You had written that you were confused. That you did not understand why they had suddenly gone silent. That you were still willing to talk. That you still believed whatever had happened between the two of you deserved one honest conversation before everything was thrown away. Your soulmate had never seen those words. Not until today. They pressed the message against their chest and whispered something so quietly that only the people closest to the bed could hear it. They were waiting for me, and suddenly the regret became unbearable. Because your soulmate realized you may not have abandoned them at all. You may have been standing on the other side of the silence wondering exactly the same thing. Why did they leave? Why did they stop fighting? Why did they never answer? Your soulmate now understands that while both of you were hurting, somebody else was controlling the information flowing between, but there was still one question nobody wanted to answer. Why? Why would someone go this far to keep the two of you apart? Jealousy? Money? Family pressure? Fear? Or was there something much bigger hidden underneath the separation? Your soulmate demanded the truth. And finally, one person admitted that the original reason had nothing to do with whether you loved each other. It was connected to a private family decision made years ago. A decision involving your soulmate's future. A decision they were never supposed to question. And somehow, your relationship with them threatened that plan. That is why your name became a problem. That is why your messages were hidden. That is why your soulmate was pushed toward another direction. And that is why someone inside that hospital room became terrified when your soulmate insisted that today's message had to reach you. Because if you read everything your soulmate wrote, you may finally understand what was taken from both of you. But there is something even more serious. Before the message was sent, your soulmate added one more request. They asked the person carrying it to find you personally if necessary. No excuses. No delays. No interference. And then your soulmate said something that made everyone realize this was no longer just about correcting the past. They said, if they still want answers, I'm finally ready to give them everything. But just as the person carrying the message turned toward the hospital room door, someone from your soulmate's family suddenly stepped into the hallway and tried to stop them. Because there is still one secret inside that message they desperately do not want you to discover, and it explains why your soulmate was pushed away from you in the first place. The person carrying the message had barely reached the hallway when a family member stepped directly in front of them. Don't take that to them. The words were sharp enough to stop everyone. For a moment, nobody moved. Your soulmate heard the argument from inside the hospital room and immediately knew what was happening. They tried to sit up and called out, "Bring it back." When the message was returned to the room, your soulmate looked directly at the person who had tried to stop it. This time there was no confusion in their eyes. There was anger. Not because someone disagreed with their decision, but because the same pattern was happening again. Someone was still trying to control what reached you. Your soulmate finally said, "You already decided enough for me." That sentence changed everything. The family member immediately became defensive. They insisted that sending the message would reopen a chapter that should remain closed. They warned your soulmate that you might ask questions nobody was prepared to answer. And that was exactly when your soulmate realized there was still something missing. Why are you so afraid of them knowing the truth? Nobody answered. Your soulmate repeated the question. This time louder. Why? Finally, the family member sat down. Their hands were trembling. They looked around the room as though hoping somebody else would speak first. Nobody did. So the confession began. Years ago, when your relationship was becoming serious, certain people inside the family had already made plans for your soulmate's future. Those plans were not built around love. They were built around security, connections, reputation, money, and a future arrangement that would benefit more people than your soulmate ever realized. Then you entered the picture. And your soulmate began making decisions based on what they actually wanted. That terrified the people who had been controlling their future. Because your soulmate was prepared to walk away from everything that had been planned for them. They were willing to disappoint people. They were willing to change direction. And most importantly, they were willing to choose you. That was when the interference began. At first, it was subtle. Small doubts. Warnings. Questions about whether you were really right for them. Then the pressure became stronger. Private conversations happened without your knowledge. Stories were exaggerated. Your intentions were questioned. Your soulmate was repeatedly told that staying connected to you would destroy the stability they had worked years to build. But none of it was working fast enough. Your soulmate still wanted you. So someone made a decision that crossed a line. They created a situation designed to make your soulmate believe you had already given up. Your soulmate stared at the person confessing and asked, "What situation?" The room went quiet again. Then came the answer. Someone had deliberately withheld something from you too. Not only had your messages been kept away from your soulmate, a message from your soulmate had also been prevented from reaching you. Your soulmate immediately froze. What message? The family member looked down. It had been written during one of the most emotional nights of the separation. Your soulmate had tried to contact you. Not casually. Not with a simple, "hello." They had written that they did not want to lose you. They had written that they were confused by everything happening around them. They had written that if you were willing to talk, they were willing to fight for the relationship. But you never received it. Your soulmate covered their face. Because suddenly both sides of the story became painfully clear. You were waiting for them. They were waiting for you. And someone made sure neither of you knew. Your soulmate whispered, "We could have fixed this." Nobody had an answer. Then the confession became even darker. The family member admitted that after keeping the two of you apart, they expected the feelings to disappear. They believed time would solve everything. They believed your soulmate would eventually accept the future chosen for them. But they were wrong. Because even after months passed, your soulmate continued asking about you. Even after years passed, your name still changed their expression. Even when they tried to move forward, they compared every new connection to what they once had with you. That is when the people around them realized the separation had not erased the love. It had only buried it. And now, inside this hospital room, everything buried was coming back at once. Your soulmate looked at the message they had written for you today. Then they added another sentence. I need you to know I did try to come back. The person who had tried to stop the message began crying. They apologized. They said they believed they were protecting the family. They said they never imagined your soulmate would carry the pain for this long. But your soulmate responded with words nobody could argue with. You protected a plan. You didn't protect me. Then they turned toward the person holding the message. Take it. This time nobody moved to stop them. But before the message left, your soulmate made one more request. They asked for an old box from home to be brought to the hospital. Someone immediately knew which box they meant. It contained the things your soulmate had never been able to throw away. A photograph. An old card. A small reminder of a promise between the two of you. And one sealed envelope that had remained unopened for years. When the box finally arrived, your soulmate searched through it with shaking hands. Then they found the envelope. Your name was written across the front. But the handwriting was not your soulmate's. Everyone in the room recognized it. The person who had just confessed went completely pale. Your soulmate looked at them and asked, "What is this?" They answered, "Please. Don't open that here." Your soulmate tore the envelope open anyway. Inside was a document connected to the original family arrangement. But beside your name was a handwritten note. Only one sentence. Your soulmate read it twice. Then a third time. Their face completely changed. Because the note suggested that someone had known from the very beginning that separating the two of you would cause damage, and they had warned the family not to do it. Your soulmate demanded to know who wrote the warning. And when the answer finally came, they stopped breathing for a second. Because it was written by the last person they ever expected to have defended you. Someone your soulmate had spent years believing was against your relationship. Someone who may have secretly tried to save your love story while everyone else was working to destroy it. And that person is connected to the hospital message in a way nobody has revealed yet. Because before your soulmate could ask another question, the hospital room door opened, and the very person whose handwriting was on that envelope walked inside.